Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look in this training module at what to do in our GDI fuel system if we're changing out our GDI high pressure fuel pump or the GDI fuel injectors. Let's open up a stock calibration file and discuss the areas that we need to update and talk about what we have in terms of options for GDI upgrade in injectors. There's aftermarket solutions and there's some OEM solutions that we can find that are going to be much cheaper than the aftermarket options. Let's jump in here. Let's open up our stock equivalent file to begin our tutorial. Let's go to File, let's go to Open, and let's move into our training course folder. Let's jump into our sample calibration file subfolder, and then in here I'm going to open up any of the stock equivalent files, 2020 Mustang GT Auto Stock. I'll open that up here so we can use this for a point of reference. Now, let's talk about upgrading the GDI fuel pump first. We'll find if we are changing out the GDI fuel pump, we want to be able to push the direct injection system further. Let's say we want to push things much harder on petrol fuel. You'll find if you hold the 90-10 blend ratio, where we have 90% fuel flow coming from the GDI system, 10% coming from the port, you'll have better charge temp cooling effect, and then you'll have better NOx suppression, and ultimately you can push things further on petrol fuel, where we're usually octane limited. In that situation, we're going to find that we have two options for a possible upgrade in our fuel pump. The most common option is going to be the XDI branded high pressure fuel pump. Now, if we are going to be changing this out, let's jump in here to fuel system. We are going to be editing, and we go here to fuel pump, our parameters under the high pressure pump. Now, unfortunately, I wanted to include what actually needs to be updated and changed in the calibration file for the XDI pump, because that's the one I've worked with before. XDI actually requires you to sign a non-disclosure form in that you're not going to share the data publicly or with anyone else. So unfortunately, we're in a situation here where I can't give you guys the information. If you are purchasing the XDI pump, they will supply all the actual changes that you need in the tune file to make that pump work. Now, what I can share with you is what changes we want to make other than the actual pump settings in here. So all the configuration settings to be able to translate what that new pump's going to do to the engine control module in terms of the control. What we have control over is going to be under our fuel pressure here. And we can go up here to our high pressure desired. So we have a normal and flex fuel table. We want to make these both the same, but let's talk about the normal table here. When we're running the XDI pump, we can run it up to 3,500 PSI. We want to run it at that higher PSI because we can squeeze more out of the GDI system in that narrow band that we have to spray the fuel, which is typically from about 330 start of injection to about 100 or so in the end of injection. So we have about a 220 degree window where we can put the fuel in for our engine within the engine cycle from the GDI system, and that going in here and turning up the pressure to 3,500 will allow us to squeeze more out of the same size injector. So let's say we're running factory injectors. We can squeeze more out of those same size injectors and get more out of the GDI system and maintain, in most cases, especially on petrol fuel, the 90-10 blend ratio, even if you're running a supercharger or turbocharger kit and you're trying to push things pretty hard on pump gas. So the change that I can recommend that you make is going to be here. We can see we can turn this up to 3,500 PSI. Now there's a high pressure fuel pump maximum, and we want to go and also set this up here to 3,500 PSI. And we actually can squeak this a little bit higher. I believe XDI says you can go up to about 3,600 PSI. You'd have to confirm that with their data that they supply, but we want to raise this as well. We want to raise this just slightly higher than what we're cranking the target pressure to be when we're running under normal conditions, under higher load. So hopefully that makes sense. The changes that we need to make, that's pretty basic changes, but this does allow you to squeeze a lot more out of your GDI pump and your GDI system. Unfortunately, I can't share with you again what the high pressure pump settings are going to be. So if you purchase the pump, they will give you the settings and you can enter it in as they show in their documentation. Now, let's talk about the other side of our GDI system. That's going to be our high pressure fuel injectors. So we know we have our low pressure injectors, We can change those out. We've talked about that pretty extensively, but the high pressure injectors are also an option to squeeze even further fuel flow from our GDI system and help us maintain that 90-10 blend ratio even at very high power levels. Even if you're on ethanol fuel, it's still going to be beneficial to run the 90-10 blend whenever possible. So if we move out of our fuel pressure or fuel system area here, let's go into engine, and we're going to go general, let's go to fuel, and then here under general. Now, if we're changing out our direct injectors, we want to go in here and change our parameters in our configuration list here. So we have our port injections. We're going to find that that's going to be all related to our, under the injector control, under the flow rate, all of this information is related to the port. This is all the things related to our direct injection. Now, if you're going to be purchasing an aftermarket set of direct injectors, you're going to find they're going to be coming from a handful of companies. So Dito. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.